talk about it. Don't let it sit on your mind. When you talk about it, know that it will be alright. Let's talk about it. Hello everyone, welcome to episode 3 of season 2 of the Mindful Podcast. So today I have 2 lovely guests here with me to talk about gentrification. I know this is a huge buzzword now and everyone's saying it and using it right and left. So I want some experts in the field from very different perspectives to talk about what exactly gentrification means and how, even more importantly, how that impacts people of color. So before we get into it, I want to first ask you how you guys are feeling. Let's start with Armani because Armani is new to the show. Let's clap it up for Armani. How are you feeling today, Armani?
I'm feeling great. I'm happy to be here. I had a really busy day at work, but it's all good because I'm here now. So I'm chilling.
Yay.
Nice.
You're with us.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Doing well. Again, for those who don't know, I'm Alex JV. I'm feeling grateful. Just celebrated my 30th birthday, and it was an amazing weekend. Yeah, it was tough to process approaching 30. I think a lot of people struggle with transitional years, and I struggle with it a lot. So I had people around me that helped me embrace it. I'm looking forward to what 30 and beyond brings.
Nice.
So grateful.
That's good to hear.
What about you? How are you?
Thank you. I'm so happy you guys asked because every time I start, I wait for someone to ask me, and then sometimes people don't. So
Oh
I'm glad
man.
that you
Well,
guys
we care.
asked,
We care.
and that makes me feel good. My week has been very up and down emotionally, and I'm trying to figure out why exactly. I think a lot of it has to do with my position and just feeling not having as much autonomy as I felt like I had when I first got the position, and I don't know if that's just a place of me feeling like I'm outgrowing it and just trying to figure out what the next steps are in my life is where I'm at. So it's been up and down, but being here is always fun and it always makes me feel better being around like-minded people and having good conversations. So I'm feeling good.
Yeah, get it out. Get it out.
Good.
Nice.
So I wanted to start off by just reading the definition of gentrification. Again, like I said, it's a buzzword, and I feel like a lot of times these words that we overuse begin to lose its power when we overuse them because a lot of people use them differently, and it's important when we are having a conversation about something that we have a shared definition of what it truly means so that we all are talking about the same thing, because I don't want Armani to be talking about gentrification and he's the expert, so I feel like he really knows the definition, but for me to have a definition that's different from Armani, that's different from you, Alex.
Yeah.
So let's start off by reading the definition of gentrification, and I got this either from Oxford or Webster. I believe it was Oxford. So this is the legit definition. The process of renovating and improving housing or a district so that it conforms to middle class taste.
Mm-hmm. It is.
So how does that make you feel? First of all, reading that definition, does that spark any emotions in you?
Well, for me, I think at this stage in my life and career, it doesn't as much. However, when I think back to the first time that I truly looked into what gentrification meant, I obviously felt like it was leaving something out. I felt that it was leaving my personal experience with gentrification out, being a black man or being someone who's, let's face it, a lot of us aren't in the middle class, even if we think that we are. We're in a working class, which is right below the middle class, and class is just so vast. So now, though, I understand from the perspective of a realtor and someone who works with a lot of different housing situations that gentrification truly is the improvement of an area that also affects other things that are pretty nuanced, such as race and class and things like that.
How would you define gentrification, or do you agree with that
I've never seen that definition that was on the screen. And if you put it back, I could probably remember it a little bit better. But I think from what I remember, the definition that the people that I usually run with use is a little bit different, and I think it would be a process of how would you put it? So it wouldn't be like this. That's but this is kind of close to it. It's more of a process of an area that is disinvested in, so an area that's historically disinvested in, usually working class, people of color communities that have been disinvested in. Prices fall, and that area is then seen as an area that people want to go back to. People that have once left and were part of the disinvestment want to return and take advantage of the lower priced housing stock, and then from there the prices go up for the people that have lived there for a while, who often are renters. So because the property down the street is being rented out, for more money, their house up the block that hasn't had any improvements goes up. Now that's not a definition; that's just like an explanation. But I guess the simplest way to put it is it's a process of kind of like a violent, like racial process of taking land and taking land and resources from communities that haven't really ever had resources. So.
Yeah. I think you guys are like saying similar things in different ways. Like this definition leaves out the experience of people. Because when you read that, or just me reading it, I'll speak for myself, I was like, okay, well, it just means that they're kind of revitalizing a neighborhood. But both of you are speaking to the fact that it's violent. There's capitalism involved in it. There is like a selfish belief in it as well for the people that are trying to recreate these neighborhoods that don't keep the people who are existing and living there in mind. So can you guys like expand a little bit more on what exactly you do? I know you mentioned that you're a realtor, Alex, but what are you seeing in your experience and your practice with home buying and people of color and gentrification? Like what is happening?
Yeah. Well, I've been blessed this year to start working with Massachusetts Affordable Housing Alliance, which I believe puts me at a different place where it's not just about buying and selling real estate. I know that a lot of people can hear, realtor, okay, we're just focused on the sales. However, the reason why I joined with Massachusetts Affordable Housing was because of that, connection to what's going on in our community, and in terms of housing and what we're seeing is, in our classes, you see people just like us. You see people who may not have started out with a lot of the best resources, may not have started out with the greatest income, and really are people that are renting in areas that, like you said, we're disinvested in, or were never invested in the first place, and so with those people now, gentrification is pushing them out. So what we're seeing is a lot more difficulty, a lot higher of a difficulty for them to own property in the areas that are being gentrified. Gentrification, to put it straightforward, it is pretty violent because you physically cannot afford it. There's nothing you can do. You've been living there for 10, 20, 30 years, through the generations, and now the rent is going up. Because the areas are being increased, because, for whatever reason, people who were not originally from the area, they're coming back. They want the amenities that they have, which is closer to, the city or closer to public transportation, the empty nesters. And for them, that's affordable to them. Like there's a scale there because a lot of those people won't necessarily be able to afford what's in the heart of those suburban areas or close to the city. However, they can afford those other areas, which are thus pushing out a lot of the lower middle working class. And so, my job is to help people understand their options and get them into the homes that are local to them, local to their schools and work. However, it can be heartbreaking at the same time. So, you know, it's something that's our long-term goal, is to continue to provide affordability, you know.
The organization, yeah. So, by day, I work at a nonprofit that helps low-income students basically figure out what they want to do with life, whether that be college or some other meaningful experience after college, after high school, called Summer Search. It's a great organization.
I've heard of it before.
Yeah, I'm an alumni of it.
Nice.
But then I'm also a community organizer, so my volunteer free time, I've been a part of a community movement called Reclaim Roxbury. I've been organizing for a number of years prior to Reclaim Roxbury, but most recently have put my time and effort into that. And it started as an initiative to get people from Roxbury involved in the planning process around public land in the neighborhood that was going to be developed. And so we pushed for there to be more consideration for people who are low income, who are feeling like the brunt of the gentrification effect. And it's about making sure that public land is used for public good and giving people the power, and helping people build their power and ability to advocate. And so I've been doing that for like 3-4 years now. And because of that, I work with a number of other organizations like MAHA, City Life, Bond, New England United for Justice, Doors That Are Not for Sale, Keep 100 for Eggleston, and a host of other organizations right to the city of Boston. So yeah, we roll deep.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
What are the impacts? Like, what are the stories you guys have been hearing from people that have been impacted by gentrification?
Oof.
Like, what are the emotions?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of. It's a tough thing for people to experience. I mean, the parents that I know that have dealt with it, it's like embarrassment because they're not able to stay where they've lived for a long period of time, like betrayal to, depending on if they had a relationship with that landlord or not. And not being able to just provide for your family. I've had students who've had their, come home to all their stuff out in like the middle of the winter because their rent went up, they couldn't afford to stay. Yeah, they got booted. And so it puts people in a crunch. For young people especially, it's like a tough situation because you're having to move and you have no say in it. You're a kid, you're not. And if you're if you're earning money, for yourself or to help your family, it's not enough. So it's a tough situation, and I think it also makes people feel powerless because they feel like there's nothing they can do to stop it. Because
that's real. That's your home.
Yeah.
To be taken away from your home, which is supposed to be like your security.
Right.
Yeah. That's.
You might have memories there. You have neighbors. Exactly. You have it's like uprooting a plant. It's not good for it.
Right.
Your foundation. It's I like what you said about you're young. A lot of it's tough. I'm directly dealing with a lot of the adults who are dealing with the decision. However, you can't help except think about the children that are involved, and they have zero clue what's going on. They just know that where they went to school, if they're of the age where they're also working as well, where they're working, the people that they know, it's something that's being taken from them. It can be very, very heartbreaking. Very heartbreaking. I've had conversations with people who, they have to find someplace affordable or else they're going to be out. And when that is stated to me, it's really, really hurtful because it's like, man, all right, I got to connect you with the right people. And, the thing I like about where I'm at is I'm not just in the real estate world. We have, housing counselors who are there helping people to figure out, okay, if they're not going to own, where can they go temporarily? Where can they go? What renting resources can they get as well? And hopefully that works out for them. If it doesn't, then what you're seeing is somebody literally uproot everything and go to outside of Boston. And not even just outside of Boston. We're talking miles.
Other communities?
Yeah.
Does that have an impact on the other communities?
The ones that they're going or the ones that they're leaving? So the ones that they're going, when you see a mass influx there, those areas start to become more pricey. right? And then it becomes less affordable for them. And it's weird. It's such a catch how that works, you know. And so there's a mass exodus of people just heading south or heading west or far, far north. And, you know, the new areas aren't necessarily invested in. So you're just putting more people into an area that can't handle that. And, you know, those areas end up getting affected more, and those places could actually be worse off. You know, if those areas don't improve, then they actually become worse with the more people going down there.
They predict that's going to happen with Brockton. So as you guys know, I'm from Brockton. Brockton is a majority minority city, mostly Cape Verdean, Haitian immigrants. It has one of the largest immigrant populations within Massachusetts. So we're talking about people who are coming from America, who need a lot of assistance, who can't really afford to uproot out of Brockton if that were to continue to be the pattern. But we are seeing a lot of, because Brockton is now a place where it's next to the commuter rail line. It's not too far from Boston, so we're seeing a lot of
and it has its own
white
bus
graduates
too.
Moving bus. You can go right to Ashmont with the Bat bus. We're seeing a lot of young white people beginning to move into Brockton and change the demographics of that. And a lot of them are moving from Boston because they can't afford it. So, we're definitely seeing that there as well. And it sounds like you guys are working on, like, different, like, spheres of this gentrification process. So it sounds like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, like Alex is more of like the options counseling in terms of, so this is happening, what are your options, where can you go? And it sounds like Armani's more of like the empowerment and trying to have residents be a part of the conversation. Would you say that's
like
accurate?
The way that we, I guess they call like organizing as opposed to service.
Right.
So providing direct service, there's organizing, like building power, there's advocacy, and there's like lawmaking. I think there's different angles to how you approach anything. And so that's just like, it's one important piece of addressing the issue.
Then I think the good thing is in a way you are right, where my role specifically comes in is definitely providing options and you know, direct service. And the good thing about having MAHA as a backing, Massachusetts Affordable Housing, is they actually do a lot of advocacy. They do a lot of empowerment. They do a lot of policy passing, you know, providing more affordable options that aren't just, hey, you have to head out of the city. It's affordable options like, hey, maybe this is a better, you know, down payment or interest rate, or this is a better mortgage program that will allow you to even afford in the areas that they have been living in and growing up in. So there are definitely multiple avenues and multiple sectors of MAHA that will be at City Hall. You know, we'll have, you know, volunteers come in and do phone calls for voting. You know, different policies that are coming in. We hold huge events with politicians to provide more options. And I think you said earlier, like, talking about making sure public land is used for public, you know, services or public good, instead of just builders coming in and putting up, you know, multi-million-dollar properties and things like that. So there's so many, it's so layered, and I guess, I'm definitely playing my role where I need to.
How can, like, someone like myself, who might not be, like, as well-versed on what's going on, be a part of combating gentrification, or be a part of the movement, and what capacity? Like, what organizations? I know you mentioned some, but what could I do? What could the people listening do?
You know, it's cliche to say get involved. Definitely include your community, your neighbors. Get to know them and have them be involved in the city council meetings, or, you know, City Hall. If you have, you know, different sections of your own town that has city meetings. Those meetings are free. Those meetings are powerful. Some people who know me know that last year I was doing a project on a certain neighborhood and just understanding their demographics, understanding what they do right, what they do wrong, things like that. And I ended up going to to a town hall meeting, and it was amazing. I walked in and just everyone is involved. The problem was there was no minorities there. I was one of two, if not three. I was one of two or three, and yet I couldn't be involved in the town hall meeting because I wasn't part of the town, and I think the other person was just witnessing as well. So we weren't there, and that was such a huge, it devastated me because they were voting on real things that mattered to the community, and yet we weren't there. So some people may look at it as like, oh, you guys don't get involved, or we can look at it as, well, they can't afford to leave their family or children at home. Maybe they're working different hours. There's a different struggle with getting involved. So I'd say you as a person get really, really small. Involve neighbors, start making decisions with your neighbors to improve your areas. Gentrify the area for yourselves before someone else comes in and decides what gentrification looks like.
What does that look like? Like gentrifying an area for ourselves?
It involves, like I said, I think it involves, cleaning up your area is one thing, and whatever that may mean to you, cleaning up your area could be strictly trash, actual physical trash. Cleaning up your area could be just behavior that's going on in your own area. It can also literally mean being watch for your own neighbors. People who, raising your neighborhood like a child, as a tribe. You know what I mean? Like if your neighbor is struggling with something, lending a hand for them so that maybe they can be involved in another capacity somewhere else because, hey, I can watch out for, your family for you, or I could watch out for, things that are going on around us. And I think if you raise your neighborhood like a tribe and gentrify it for yourself, invest in your neighborhood. Businesses are very, very rampant right now, right? Everyone has a business. So investing in the businesses within your community is one of the biggest things that you can do right now. And I think that those are small things that can go a long way. And then when you start to create actual groups that can meet, make decisions, then you take the decisions away from someone else coming in.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's simple. And we're going to go into emergent strategy later, but one of the 9 pillars, I'm calling it, of emergent strategy is small is all. And it's really about the little things that make up the whole. So if I am purchasing from a local bodega every day, or if I pick up a few pieces of trash, but then I am also influencing. So I work at Brockton Neighborhood Health Center. We have a staff of about 600. If I send an email blast about let's beautify the area, the downtown area, and challenge everyone to do those small actions, then collectively that's a huge impact. So I like how you simplified that.
And it's free. It doesn't take too much money. You literally keep your area clean so that it can attract business. It can attract your own money within your own neighborhood. So I don't want to steal too much. I'm sorry.
What's the question?
So what does it look like for us to gentrify our own neighborhoods as opposed to developers coming in?
I don't know if I'd call it gentrifying our own.
That
was kind of buzzy for me to say that.
I remember Jay-Z had said that, and it was very controversial. Like, we're not supposed to be gentrifying; we're supposed to be building it up. So
maybe I can answer the other one about how you get involved.
Answer whatever you want.
Whichever one it
is.
is.
This is your show too. Y'all can ask
because I was like, I don't know if I can answer that question. I don't know if I can. I didn't hear Jay-Z say that, so I don't know. But to get involved, I think. Yes, it sounds cliche too, but the organizations that I listed before, getting involved in one of those organizations, whether it be donating your time, donating your money, sharing what they do, doing a call-in day if there's a call-in day for legislators or city council. Just making an effort to stay involved, to stay up to date in what's going on. It's tough depending on who you are to actually like stop gentrification per se. Like as someone who's actively trying to do that in their free time, volunteering, and it's not easy, and it's it's an uphill battle, and it's global forces. It's bigger than just United States. It's all happening all over the world, and it's so it's a big issue, and so but I do agree that the way that you can kind of fortify against it is by connecting with your neighbors, joining neighborhood groups, forming neighborhood groups, with the goal of making sure that your neighbors, neighbors that maybe have less resources than you, are spoken for. If you are of more means, I think it's important to step back and listen to people who are have less poor, and really try to understand what they're going through too, because oftentimes people who get involved are other people who have more time and resources, and so they can often speak over the people who might actually need more people to stand up for them. And so I think it's important to do something, and being a good neighbor is important. Advocacy is important. If you can avoid being being someone who's actively profiting from gentrification, then that also is a good way to not do it. I'm not saying quit your job, but if your job is going to a poor neighborhood and flipping homes, or or being in or being an aggressive realtor, then that's not good. Try to stop that.
Can you talk more about how it's happening all over the world? Because
Sure.
Yeah, I'm curious.
From what I understand, having someone who reads about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
This is happening coast to coast in America, but it's also happening all over the world in both developed countries and less developed countries. It's similar to what's happened here. There's areas that either have never been invested in or are disinvested in, that are seen as more safe nowadays, because maybe the people that live there have fought to make sure it's safe and that's clean, and now it's a more desirable neighborhood. And there's opportunity. People have more money now. The economy's better, so that which is a global thing. So people have more money to spend. So people are gonna want an extra house. A lot of the housing crisis, from what I understand, is around investment property. It's not even about family X wants to move their family to from the suburbs to Boston. That's actually not the case. It's more about there being luxury towers that people buy for investment property to trade on global markets and stuff that I don't have. I don't necessarily understand, but I'm trying to understand. I'm reading books about it, but it's bigger. It's a big thing.
It is,
and there's it's a big topic. Right now, the presidential candidates are debating about rent control, and all these major topics. So it's a big deal.
Gentrification, for better or for worse, it is always going to be a thing. Because, like you said, and you basically took the words right out of my mouth about the economy, the money's always flowing. It's flowing somewhere. You know what I mean? Money is flowing, to through different businesses that are going to be looking for ways to spend their money, and real estate has been the major and main way since the beginning of the first house that was built. So gentrification will occur. The question is, are we able to change the definition, right? Where it's no longer just about improving it for the middle class, it's improving it for the class that's there. It's improving it for us. I have no problem with what Jay-Z said about gentrify your area, because you can redefine gentrification. It's not about just hearing what he said and having a problem with we're not supposed to be gentrifying. It's saying, no, well, let's take the word gentrification and say it literally means to improve your area, period. Let's not worry about that you're not, take out the violent piece, take out the nuance of race and the fact that it's affecting you, and understand that you're gentrifying it for your own good. It will definitely continue to occur, and I think that fortifying your area, getting involved, spending money locally, spending time locally. You don't have to spend money locally. Time is very, very valuable. Vote. I'm sorry, I believe in it. There's a lot of people that don't believe in voting, and that's okay. That's their prerogative. I won't argue with somebody who believes that voting does no good. I will just say, well, while you're sitting at the table,
to Jimmy Pereira.
Yeah, vote locally. Thank you.
Primary in the city of Brockton.
Yes, he
hopefully we can get for mayor.
For mayor.
So hopefully we get our first elected.
Actually,
right now it's Moses Rodriguez because our mayor. Who?
I thought it was
Carpenter.
No, I don't know about Brockton. So.
Carpenter passed away in July.
Yeah.
So
who's Carpenter?
He was the mayor.
He was the mayor.
Not from Brockton.
Yeah.
No, we have a good perspective of like different areas of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Alex dabbled from Hyde Park.
Yeah, from Hyde Park, family in Brockton. Yeah, so I have my roots there too.
So we all over the place.
Yeah, vote. Like you said, I think it's huge locally. I really think it matters. And even if your one vote, even if you believe your one vote doesn't matter, imagine what else you're doing. Imagine what else you're getting involved in, or what other piece of information you're finding out just by looking up which candidates you like.
Right.
Because now, yes, you're one vote to the person who has no shot. Yeah, that's going to happen. However, now you found out about, okay, well, this group is trying to do this to the neighborhood that I'm living in. And you wouldn't have known that if you just kind of was just like, oh, well, I'm not going to get involved. So there are layers. There are so many layers to this. When you invest in a person of more means, when you invest into your area, imagine how it's coming back to you in ways that you don't see on your bottom dollar or, immediately. Yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
You guys are making me feel better about myself because I will admit, so I lived in the Bronx for a little bit, and I would always joke around with my friends that I was gentrifying the Bronx because I wanted to create a community garden, and I would jog around the neighborhood, and everyone would look at me crazy because people didn't jog in the West Side Bronx, but so I wasn't gentrifying it, I was trying to improve it.
Yeah,
right?
for yourself,
I don't know.
Right?
I mean,
it depends on how you take the word gentrify. That's the thing.
We're looking at this definition, or if
yes, because when you're receiving, it's such a stretch to say this. Think about how far the N-word has come in our communities. If the N-word sticks out in a sentence to some people, the way it doesn't to others. To others, it's literally just in the middle of a sentence, just something that means that person. However, to others, it sticks out and it hurts.
There's a trigger.
Gentrification, for me, I've heard it so many times, and I've studied it so many times that it doesn't stick out as the worst thing because I'm not just taking it at face value. I'm not taking it as just that. I'm taking it as, okay, this is happening. Now, how do I involve people who look like me to either A, combat it, or B, fortify, like he said, fortify their space so that they're not affected by it, or so that they can benefit from it, because us minorities can benefit from gentrification too in other ways, and there's a lot, and that we can go down a path of how we can. However, it isn't just about the housing, it's about a lot of things that are going on around us, So yeah, it depends on how you receive the word gentrification.
True. I don't know. I feel like I'm of the left side of the spectrum that says personally housing should be a human right. I think you probably would agree with me on this too. But just there's reality, and then there's what should be the world we live in and the world we want to live in. And I think right now the world we live in, there's practical things you can do to make sure that your community is fortified exactly. And then dreaming, right? I think housing is a human right. It should be. There's a lot of people who are pushing for public housing, but not in the sense that not in the way that we think about it here, but socialized housing. Putting a lot of public land into community land trust and making it affordable, in perpetuity, so it's forever affordable to people. Not thinking of housing as a commodity that can be traded on global markets, right? Like making not having a situation like the 2008 global housing crisis happened, and now folks, this gentrification is like kind of the result of taking a lot of middle income black wealth and disinvesting from that community, and now there's like homes that are being sold for dirt cheap because banks are selling them. So I think there's a world that we want to live in, and I think part of that is getting involved in fighting, whether you're more of like, let's make sure that everything's good here, or you're someone who's out pushing the city and the state to do more. Like I know in Massachusetts there's a movement to like not just protect people who are renting right now and make sure that they can't be evicted for like no reason. There's also people fighting to make it so that in communities that have like zoning laws that make it so you can't actually build like multi-unit dwellings, which is like the easiest way to provide affordable housing, because the more units, so it's more affordable over it's math, I guess. But and there's communities that don't. There's communities that don't want those multifamilies to be there because they're
devalues
because it's the racism. They don't want black people in the neighborhood. And sure, it devalues. That's actually probably a lot of people are probably worried about that too. I think it's a combination of both. And there's people that pay into fear and so there's a lot to it. But we want to be hopeful that things can change. But I think in terms of your situation in the Bronx, right?
Yeah.
I didn't forget. I think it's totally possible for a black person to be someone who's gentrifying, and I think it isn't something that like we can always prevent as much as it's like, what are you doing to like on the other side of it? Like, like the process from what I understand of gentrification, it starts with college students who are courageous enough to venture in neighborhoods that they can't afford because their schools housing is too expensive, right? Which is a whole other issue. And then they kind of take the brunt, and then that neighborhood becomes safer, and they're like, okay, this neighborhood's okay, and then and then more people come. So it happens, and it's effed up. But we live in an effed up capitalist society, like so. I think it's just I don't think you shouldn't feel bad as much as you think about how you can make things better. So. I think also trying to build like public gardens and jogging isn't gentrifying personally. I don't think we should give that to them.
Because we all run.
And people have gardens in black communities.
Exactly. And I'm Haitian. We live off the land.
Yeah.
So it was really more so a joke, but then at the same time, like it was something that like internally I was like, am I like trying to shift? It was more so like the culture too, because my area was predominantly Dominican.
I don't know anything about it.
And African. So the Bronx is super diverse, and it's the only borough in New York City that hasn't been gentrified or is like very much, it feels like New York. Like if you were in New York in the 70s, like, people tell me, because I'm not that old, but people tell me it's pretty much like that same essence. So my thing was, I was going into like this Bronx neighborhood, and I was like, people don't know what they deserve. Like, I need to clean up all the stairs and make sure like everything is clean here. I don't care if the superintendent isn't cleaning it. These like immigrants don't know that they deserve cleanliness and gardens and like a safe space to exercise and all. Which they do deserve it, but for whatever reason, I felt like me doing these small little tasks was gonna change that. And my friends would make fun of me because like people stole the plants that I put in.
Man, that's heartbreaking. That is heartbreaking.
You tried though. See, that's trying to uplift and build community. I'm surprised you didn't meet no one that was down with the movement.
Yeah.
No one.
You know, I love that you said. I love that you said they don't know that they deserve cleanliness. They deserve that stuff. There is a quote. Now I don't know where I heard it or where I read it. However, it's a little rough. However, the quote goes, there's a difference between a poor black man and a poor white man, and the difference is that the poor white man doesn't believe that they deserve to be poor. And I was like, man, I was like, wow.
And so.
I don't know if it was Dave Chappelle. I don't know. No. I don't.
'Cause I watched his
I want to
stand-up
say
that day.
Dave probably re-quoted it. However, it came from something well before that.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously, it's not a sweeping statement to say that that's the case between all white people and all black people. And I always need to preface those statements. However, that's a perfect example of it. It's just, you know, they don't believe that they should be jogging around a neighborhood, or they don't believe that their neighborhood is safe enough and to be doing these things. Or, you know, it's tough, the things that we don't want to get involved with. And we deserve more. We deserve better. And deserving those things starts with us. It starts with us believing that we deserve it. And it starts with us believing that we are capable of giving ourselves that and doing it. And it goes a long way. And that's why the human experience is yet again just such a complicated thing. You know, such a complicated thing.
Yeah, I feel like gentrification is just another phase in speaking to the idea of like the black poor person versus the white poor person. It's like the next chapter in like a long book of black people kind of being like pushed around wherever, and it's because, you know, we taken from Africa and brought here, and just stripped of power and autonomy and the ability to determine your future. And so I think that this is like a long future of kind of not having self-determination and not having the power. Like, we are a minority in a majority white country that has that, you know, not too long ago was enslaving black people. So it's no kind of like, for me, it's not that crazy. Like, you know, that the situation is happening, and it feels like another iteration of that. But I think, you know, there's been also a long history of people resisting. So there's there's communities that you can find that have built community land trusts, that have, like, right here in Boston, one of the first community land trusts. And there's also, prior to that, a movement to actually like have Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan secede from the city of Boston and form its own municipality to have a better access to like resources and control of the resources. So there's a long history of people fighting back, and I feel like it's just another iteration. Gentrification does feel like a buzzword to a certain extent, especially just how it's kind of hard to define. Like you said, like, we're experts in it, and I wouldn't call myself an expert. You know, you call us experts in it.
We're involved. Yeah, we're involved.
But it's so hard to define.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, whereas, like, you know, other things are easier to define. So I think it's because there's so many factors and there's so many ways to look at it.
It's layered.
What do you guys think in terms of, because you guys touched on like the historical aspect of like FHA loans and redlining and things like that, and reparations is like a huge part of like these presidential debates that are happening right now. What do you think about in terms of like housing being a part of reparations?
That would be interesting.
There's talks about it.
There's talks about it, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the fact that it's even being discussed is huge. And the reason why I say that is because when the thought of reparations gets thrown out there, in certain communities, you notice it's scoffed at. It's like, oh, well, you know, people are just looking for a handout, da da da. And there was a time where I was like, no, we're never going to get we're never going to get reparations. That's never going to happen. And then I just, you know, I did a little research myself on it, and people who have gotten reparations, I was like, wait a minute, that's not that outlandish of a thought, like, for us to get reparations. And we're not asking for a handout. However, you can clearly see what the damage that has been done to us today. You know, I don't care how much people talk about the argument of, you know, stuff that happened so long ago. It's like, no, it wasn't long ago, because you still see the problems of it. Yeah, you still see the effects of it to this day.
We're enslaved longer than we've been free.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, just numerically, if you do the math.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, 1619 to like 1866 versus. And then if you want to really call that freedom.
Yeah, you
like
still have, segregation,
so
Jim Crow,
let's say 1970s, we got free really? So it's only been like
40 years. It blows your mind. It blows your mind.
Crack epidemic.
Right.
And then, you're talking about the drug epidemic, and then you're talking about actually the prison pipeline.
Right. Exactly.
It's crazy.
So it's definitely, we're being done dirty.
Oh yeah, still to this day.
And so we would deserve reparations to the point, like I think it's totally. And I think that's part of like what's been some of the discussions, like Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris. They've all been kind of talking about like reparations, but what would it look like? There's been movements for that in a long time.
Yeah. To include housing and reparations would be
40
absolutely huge.
Yeah. Like originally about land.
Yeah.
It was always about land.
Yeah.
That's very true.
It was,
Imagine where we would be. I mean, again, like I said, real estate has been the absolute basis of wealth in America. Period. That's all it's been. It started and it'll never change. No matter what other, housing crash comes up, no matter what, it'll never change. So I think now, if we talked about putting housing in reparations, I don't think it would ever pass, because I think the people in power see how much power is in real estate, because you're not just giving the basic right. Now you're giving, now you're not only just giving the basic right, now you're giving a means to wealth. Now you're giving something else.
So people are fighting already back against the push to have more progressive housing policy. Real estate development helped kill a bill in Massachusetts that would have just reported on how many people are being evicted. Right now, we have no idea how many people are evicted in Massachusetts, or in Massachusetts across.
Because they don't want us to know.
In Boston, real estate development killed it, and it would have been like a just cause eviction bill, and didn't pass. So it's like there's a lot of money, people who are against
lobbying.
Yeah, people. But I think there's that kind of money is lonely. We are the masses, we're the people. So I think if we all get down on the same page, we don't have to worry about all that, which is what I encourage all of us to do.
So join together as a collective.
Join one of the organizations that I named, like get involved, Maha, City Life, one of the organizations. Yeah. Get down, vote, get to know your neighbor. The local is everything. So.
Know your neighbor.
What is it? The small is
all. Small is all.
Yeah. So I think that's actually a perfect segue.
Yeah.
Before we get to that, I just want you guys, if you have any final thoughts, or because we focus on mental health, so if someone, because we don't have the representation of someone who's actually going through that process of, and maybe you guys have and you haven't spoken to it, who might be being pushed out of their neighborhood, what kinds of things would you say to that person, in addition to the resources that you guys already mentioned, but just you spoke about the emotional aspect of it and the shame, and what kind of words of support could you say for someone that might be listening, that might be experiencing that?
It's tough, and there's other people experiencing the same thing, which and there's people who are fighting back against it. I think it's especially hard for people who have mental illness, whether that be addiction or just literal mental illness. There's probably because we're not counting so many people who have disabilities who are easily pushed out of their homes. Hopefully, there's people that are watching out for that, and I think there are. But if you're in that situation, just go to City Life, Viterbana, call Maha, call Metro Housing Boston, look for support, and just keep pushing, because I think that's all we can do. It's always all we've ever done.
And I talk about this. I actually touch upon the topic a lot in our first-time homebuyers class. There's a big discrepancy in mental health and physical health for renters and owners. Huge discrepancy, and it has a lot to do with stress. Stress kills, and we understand that. So, one of my first things that I would say is, outside of anything that has to do with the word house, stress does kill. Please, please, please take some time for self-care. I know there's a lot of people working 2 jobs, 2.5 jobs, 3 jobs out there just to put a roof over their family's head. Take some time for yourself, because your money is not only going into rent, your money's going into taking care of your health. In terms of, words of encouragement for people who are going through gentrification, I would say, we're obviously going to say get involved with the organizations. You don't have to change completely what you're doing right now in order to get involved. An hour of your time, 30 minutes of your time. Call and figure out what's going on. I would say definitely raise your awareness on what your situation is and what's going on around you. Get involved, not to just buzzword get involved. Get involved to really learn a little bit more about how to get yourself out of where you're at. Because there is a gap, and I forget what the phrase is that it's called, where you're too poor to go to the next level. However, you're making just too much to get the assistance that you want. That in between, right? It's possible, is my words of encouragement. It is very, very possible to get yourself out if you are willing to put in the time. Patience is key. You can get yourself out of there, whether it's saving, whether it's working with people who are experts at this. You don't have to work with us particularly. However, our organizations are helping people, empower themselves, right? We teach a lot on, your financial place, your credit, your savings, things like that. Like, there's a lot of things that we can control. So, build your education there, build your awareness to the things that you can control, so that 5 years from now, you're still going to be living. And you're going to look back at today and say, what have I done to try and improve, as opposed to saying, like, oh, it's impossible. Like, everything's too expensive. Yes. Okay. So what do we need to do with you to get to a point where you can afford? Or what do we need to do with you to get to a point where you're improving your areas and staying in your areas? So really look inward, get involved, and become more aware, and I promise you, no matter how long it takes, you will get there.
I think about, like, our sphere of influence. So we all have a group of people, whether we're aware of it or not, that we're influencing with our day-to-day actions. So I'm just thinking about, like, before we started recording, we talked about how I purchased my first home. So just thinking about, I feel all grown, but, just thinking about, like, what it took for me to get there, and even before that, what it took for my family, who are immigrants, to purchase their first home, and how they around them have influenced their friends, and then also even further investing in real estate in their home country and providing jobs and just creating a ripple effect. So just thinking about the sphere and your control, what you're in control of and who you can touch. Right. And then again, small is all, and seeing how that can ripple effect to the larger community. I think every episode, like when we talk about like the impacts of all of these topics on people of color, I just think about how resilient we are. Like,
we are tough.
So tough resilient.
Yeah.
Right. Did that hurt, Alex? I probably didn't
it did. I'm keeping the tears. I'm keeping the tears back. However, yes.
And like Armani said it, like keep
survival,
pushing.
Yeah.
Like we just keep pushing. Like we've been through this. This is just a continuation of what has been happening for centuries, and we're gonna get through it.
There's a group from Jackson, Mississippi, who I love, called Cooperation Jackson, who is doing like amazing work around like creating an intentional like community and city and having it be eco-friendly and like have there be a solidarity economy and all these beautiful things, non-capitalist. And right now they're actually doing an exchange. Speaking of 400 years of return. 1619, it's 2019 now. It's been 400 years since the first African person was taken from Africa and brought to America. And so that group is doing an exchange, a cultural exchange in Ghana with people there who are thinking about how to fight gentrification in Ghana. And so thinking about how do we share resources as diasporic people. So yeah, I think there's people plotting on the future already, trying to help us get more free. We don't even know it.
That's awesome.
It's out there.
I love the solidarity there.
Yeah.
I like that.
These groups are out there. That's the thing. These groups are out there. We gotta give towards it. Give our time.
Thank you, guys.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you.
So we're gonna end this episode like we end every episode, and that is with a mindful moment. So we have the emergent strategies that I've alluded to all episode. Can we show that on the screen? The 9 emergent strategies. So for those of you guys listening and that can't see the screen right now, so we have 9 emergent strategies taken from the book Emergent Strategies by
Adrienne Marie Brown.
Thank you. And these are strategies that I have adopted and lived by. So for today's mindful moment, I'm going to read them aloud, and then I want my guests to just talk about the ones that kind of like scream out at them and what that means to them and maybe how they can adopt that in their day-to-day lives. So, small is good. Small is all. Change is constant. Be like water. There is always enough time for the right work. There is a conversation in the room that only these people at this moment can have. Find it. Those are supposed to be separate. Never a failure, always a lesson. Trust the people. If you trust the people, they become trustworthy. Move at the speed of trust. Focus on critical connections more than critical mass. Build the resilience by building the relationships. Less prep, more presence. What you pay attention to grows. So you guys know I like small is all. I love that. I live by that. I think it makes me think about how everything is connected and like my day-to-day thoughts, my day-to-day actions all build to where I want to be as a person, where I see myself in the future. So it just reminds me of the importance, which is pretty much mindfulness, of the now and what I'm doing and how that's going to get me to the larger picture. So what about you? What from that speaks to you?
I do like what you pay attention to grows. Funny enough, I was posting something on that recently without even seeing this today. You know, what you focus on expands is what I usually say to that. And it can encompass a lot of the things here where, you know, there's a lot that's going on. There's a lot that you're doing, and you can get down on yourself. You can focus on how hard something is or how impossible something might seem. And when you focus on that part of it, it will always be that. It'll always be impossible. It will always be hard. However, if you focus on, you know, the good, if you focus on your strengths, that's what you're going to grow. You're going to grow your strengths. Your relationships around you, if you focus on what's wrong with the relationships that you have or something that's going not so great, that's going to be the topic of the relationship. That's going to be the theme of the relationship. However, if you focus on, you know, the blessing, the grace that it is to, you know, have friends, have a relationship, have the people around you, then you'll be surprised at how different your life will be. And so when I say what you pay attention to grows, I'll say pay attention to your grace. You know, pay attention to grace, how amazing things are actually around you. There's a couple in there that definitely work. However, I would say that one is the number one.
There's so many good ones.
Yeah.
Probably never failure, always a lesson. I think I like that.
That was my number two. Nice.
Whatever happens in life, flip it into a lesson. Don't be negative. Don't get caught up in like beating yourself up. Just learn from it. You know, there's lots of people, like lots of similar quotes that I like to point to that are similar, but I think that's a simple one. Just never failure, always a lesson. And it's like I think Erykah Badu says, the man who knows nothing knows that he knows nothing at all. So it's like whatever you're doing in life, don't expect for it to work out exactly because you don't actually know. So just like chill out and learn. Be a student of life.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Awesome.
So it's a wrap on episode 3 of the Mindful Podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode. Peace.